be a video about how to make harmonious fabric choices for quilts and English paper piecing, and how to choose thread that matches the fabric. This will be a series, and I'll also cover cutting paper templates, cutting fabric and fussy cutting, tacking fabric to paper templates and alternatives, and how to sew the shapes together with a few tips sprinkled along the way. I hope you like it. Let's start. Okay, so just a few tips and tricks about choosing fabric, so what type of fabric you should use. Personally, I recommend quilting cottons because they're not too tightly woven. They're easy to work with, they crease well, they stay in place, they resist stretching too, so that's nice. But all quilting cottons are not made equal. So you need to be wary of that. So for example, this one is I think perfect for that. It's really easy to work with, it's supple, it's stable, and if I would want to try out, let's say at a store, I could always just fold it like this so that there's 4 layers, and you can take the needle you use normally for this and pass it through. It should pass through rather easily. If it goes through easily, then that's a good fabric for that. I have this other one that's pink right here, and if I do the same exercise, you can see it's woven quite tightly, contrary to this one. So I think if I do the same exercise with this one, I'm gonna find it harder to go through. Not the best fabric. You could work with it, I mean, I did, but it's just not the best. And then I have this example here, which is not tightly woven. It's about the same as the turquoise one here, but while using it, I found that the flowers that were printed on it were quite, it's quite thick. The paint is thick, so it was hard to go through it easily, and it's very hard to go through. So as you can see, it's just hard to go through. So I wouldn't use a fabric with something painted on it like that again. Plus it keeps little marks on where I put the needle through with the paint, so that's a bit annoying. And finally we have linen. So linen is a good choice too. I'm sorry, I only have black linen on hand, so it's gonna be hard to see. Linen is woven quite loosely, so it's, here I have 4, it's very easy to go through. It's like super easy. With linen, it's important to know that linen tends to shrink a lot and more than cotton. So I think it's about 10% for linen and 3 to 4% to 5% for cotton. So if you're doing something with say a mix of cotton and linen, or even only linen, you might want to pre-wash it. All of these are just me telling you how I do English paper piecing, but there's 1,000 good ways to do English paper piecing. So first I thought I would do a little color theory to help you with choosing your fabric. So first, the tone or light value is how bright or dark your fabric is. It is the first thing I look at when I'm making a quilt. So to understand this, you can imagine a scale from white to black, in which you would try to place the main color of the fabric you have on hand. So you would try to match how bright it is to your grayscale. That way you could compare all colors together on that scale and evaluate contrast between them. If all your colors are very close on the grayscale, you will find that the end result will be flat. It won't be full of life, so you really want to pay attention to that. All the following examples were taken from Cotton and Steel Strawberry Fields collection. I will link it in the description box below. So here you have a monochromatic example. This means that it's all the same hue or the same color, but just different value or tones, which creates contrast in the fabric choice, and it would make an interesting quilt even though it's only theoretically one color. In this case I kept the same colors as before, but I added one more color or hue, which is in this case orange, which is a contrast of temperature with the green. So it has interest for the eye, and it makes it bright and joyous. So when adding multiple colors, be wary of not adding too many colors to the mix, unless you're a virtuoso of color theory, and sticking to 1 to 3 types of contrast at once, or your brain won't find it harmonious, as too many things will happen at once while looking at it. Here it is in black and white, just to illustrate better what I meant by matching tones together. You can also start planning at this step if the size of the pattern on your fabric is good for the size of your templates. Also, if you want to think about the size of the design, you can think about the size of your finished project. This will dictate the distance from which you're going to view your work and help you choose the size of your patterns and designs. Look at the fabric from that distance and you'll get an idea of what it will look like in your finished quilt patch or project. Okay, so now just a quick tip too about choosing the size of your prints. So as you can see, I have smaller details, bigger details, and this will matter as you're just doing small patches. Depending on the size of your patch or template, you'll want to check if the motif will be lost in the batch or not. Or in this case, if I hadn't fussy cut, then I could have just blue like that, or just a little chunk of green, and this wouldn't look too good. So this is a very bold big print for English paper piecing most of the time, and most of the projects I made until now were smaller pieces than that, so let's like small pieces like that. So I needed very small prints to be able to showcase them nicely on the fabrics. Busy prints often need solid colors or tone-on-tone small prints to rest the eye and really showcase them. So for example, this is a big one. If I had put only big ones like that everywhere, then they wouldn't pop out, and also their light value is darker than the others. So I really use that to showcase them and make them pop. And I think what would look best now would be a border of only solid colored pieces. So you would really, it would really showcase this. When people think matching thread, they think exactly the same color thread, but you can get out of this if you don't, want to buy a spool of thread for every project, or if in my case, well, in English paper piecing, you always have 2 different colors side by side very often. So you want to choose thread that will blend in with both as much as possible, but it doesn't have to be the same color. Here I have an example. So in this example, I use 2 different colors to make the seams. I'm gonna go very close so you can see. So personally, there isn't much of a difference between the seams. I use one exactly matching thread and one contrasting thread, but in the same tone or light values. Here you can see that most of my colors are of the same value, so it will be easy to choose a thread based on that. If you want to do the same thing with your fabric, you can just go in your pictures or photos and put a black and white filter on top of it. So I used a pink like this and a blue like this to do these seams, and you almost can't tell the difference. In real life, I have to get really up close. You won't see it much if you really just take small stitches through the, a few threads and don't go through the papers. You won't be able to tell much of a difference. Of course, this is regular sewing thread. I think it's 50 weight. What some people recommend for English paper piecing is 80 weight. So I think Oriful has this weight. I think there's even 100 weight thread, but this is like extremely fine. What you would want is to choose polyester thread. I think is better because it's stronger, and since you're gonna go through a lot of seams and pushing it all the way through each time, it can make the thread weak and break, especially with cotton. So yeah, you're gonna want polyester thread, I think. So yeah, I think that's about it for thread. What I really like about English paper piecing is that it's so portable, so also so very cheap. If you are a sewist and you have a scrap bin, it's just so easy to just go in there and choose little pieces. You can use very small scraps and give them a life instead of going to the landfill. So it is very nice.
This wraps it up for today. Next time we will be talking about everything cutting. So cutting paper, cutting templates, choosing paper, and cutting fabric, and also fussy cutting, of course. So see you next time. Thank you for watching.